So I'm about to put the press back into commission. It's been a couple years since I did any substantial loading. Maybe did a small batch of 9 mil for the range one day, but here's my Hornady lock and load AP progressive turret press. And as you can see, I've got dust buildup and some walnuts from reloading, and just a little bit of cleanup work to do on the press. I've already cleaned this plate, but there's a couple places where we've got some surface oxidation starting. And one thing, it's not really a marine environment here, we live in Texas, so I've got some surface corrosion on this bracket and on the primer tube. It's where my fingerprints have touched it. It started to bloom rust, so I'm gonna clean all this up, re-lubricate everything. That way I can do an accurate batch. This is more just maintenance work in my opinion, but essentially once I get the dies all set up for what I'm going to load, these are actually 380 auto dies that I'm going to take out of here, but I'm going to be reloading 223, and I got a new set of dies I haven't used, so I'm going to be cleaning all of that up and servicing the press. Alright, so I'm just going to be taking a green Scotch-Brite pad and lightly, without a whole lot of pressure, just basically the weight of my hand, rub down the subplate. This is just to remove any debris. We're not really truing up the subplate here, we're just scuffing it up so that any surface corrosion or dust is brushed off. There's a couple places I might put a little bit of pressure right here where we had some rust blooming. Just go over that real lightly, and this has always stayed in a dry area in my office here, but wanted to just demonstrate some good preventative maintenance here. Take this off. You can see surface rust, and it's just because the type of metal it is. It's not really anything critical. This is what I'm rubbing right now is just a bracket to hold the shell box when they're completed, but just in an effort to clean the whole thing up, rub this down, get under here real quick. Don't really want to scratch my workbench too much with the Scotch-Brite pad either. So now I've given it a good, get this area here a little better. Okay, this piece I mentioned has some rust blooms. I'm going to handle this a little separately. I think what I'm going to do, so this unscrews from the base plate there. Focus on the threads. There we go. So this primer tube comes off, and as I mentioned, just from where I've handled it, my oil's in my skin causing rust blooming. I think I'm going to actually clean this up and paint it to match the color of the press, but I'm going to set that aside for right now as I continue cleaning. Alright, so this is Hornady's One Shot. It's a dry lube. This is more of a cleaner than it is anything else, but I'm just going to lightly kind of powder blast, if you will, all these components. This will help get a little bit of cleaning going on here. And then what I'm going to do is just take a clean cloth, wipe that down, remove any excess powder that has fallen from previous reloading. You can see on the towel I got a little bit of it, and then where I was touching up the rusty spots, I'm just trying to wipe that down. So one thing you want to avoid is putting any kind of oil on here, just because it's just going to collect everything. But now with that said, any of the places where I've seen a little bit of rust, I'm just going to put a couple dots of gun oil. Maybe one more back here. And then, see in there in the primer tube, I need to clean out as well. So let me see if I can do this. So if you can just take and wipe in that oil real lightly, just to really put a thin protective coat on here, and that will prevent future rust buildup. Now I'm going to actually come in and clean this a little finer detail. I'm going to clean out all these little tracks, wipe down all the edges, but wipe this subplate down right here. See, this thin layer isn't going to hurt anything. I just wanted to put a protective coat of oil. My suspicion is that the factory coat of shipping lubricant or rust preventative film that was on it has just worn off or been cleaned off previously. When I was cleaning with a shell plate installed or what have you. And this is just going to give us a little bit of rust prevention in that plate area. Okay. Now a couple things I need to do. Because I'm switching over from a pistol loading configuration to a rifle, obviously the dies are getting changed out. These quarter turn dies are just going to come out. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and remove these. And I will put them in their die box in just a second. Because I really want to make sure there's, this whole deck up top is clean. This, let me see if I can get it open here. There we go. So this primer pocket needs to be changed out for a small primer pocket. We were doing large pistol primers on here previously, so that needs to be changed out. Obviously 223 takes small rifle primers. Gonna clean up all this action as well. Any leftover powder, clean off. On the ram, I'm going to be lubricating the ram and cleaning out any of this remaining make sure it doesn't get in my camera. Cleaning out any of this remaining dust from the tumbler and so forth that I have down here. So basic maintenance, making sure the pawl adjustments are correct. And I can show that in greater detail if anybody needs it, but should be good since the last time I used it was not too long ago, although I need to get back into using it more. Having kids and having time and so forth sometimes is a challenge. But essentially I'm just spraying down the press with this one shot in an attempt to wipe it down and clean it and leave that dry film lubricant in its place. Any of this stuff I can just wipe off if necessary, but this stuff is good to have on hand. I'll coat this top section here. That way, when I wipe it all down and clean it, things will be lubricated. Stuff like this old grease that's caked up in here, I can wipe that off. See how nasty that is. So let me wipe on this for a minute, and then I'm gonna probably put some grease in the ram, and then wipe it all down. Okay, so I wiped everything down. I lubricated the plates. Now this shell holder, it's number 16 shell holder. This is what we're using for 223 casings. I did stuff it up a little bit and spray it down with one shot, but I did not do any type of gun oil on it, just because I don't want powder to stick in the grooves. But let me go ahead and drop this nut in here. I'm just going to go hand tight for now. And make sure we're indexed. Okay, we are progressing with our shells lined up. Do a quick check. Yep, looking good. So now I'm going to go get the grease gun and hit these fittings lightly, just enough to fill this little ring with grease so that it lubricates each slide. And then I think we're looking to be in good shape here. I'm going to do a couple other cleanup things, like clean out this shell bin. It's got some debris in it. And then I'm going to start fixing the dies for 223. Also, on my powder measure here, pardon the mess on my workbench, I'm getting organized. So I got to put my dies in. Let's see here. So 223 Remington, these are the Hornady dies. I've got to set these up on the press. Also, on my case activated powder drop, I'm going to do the same kind of maintenance. As you can see, there's a little bit, there's a little bit of surface rust forming. Also got to clean out this old powder that's in here. Pretty much just maintenance, cleaning this stuff up. One thing I did see, someone suggested a Pyrex version of this hopper. I think I may look into that in the future. So anyway, press is nice and clean, about to be lubricated, and then I'm going to start setting up my dies, just for conversation's sake. Actually, you know what? Hi there. Okay, good. I do have the bushings already installed. So these are the Hornady dies. This is the sizing and decapping die, and this is the seat and crimp die. One of the other things I'm going to be running in this setup is going to be my Hornady powder cop. Put my 9mm dies away. Like I said, I haven't done much reloading in a couple of years, with the exception of running quick batch of 9mm through here. There we go, had to find it. This is the Hornady powder cop. Basically, when you press your case down, this rod in the middle that I'm holding touches on the powder, and you can set this band to indicate the correct height of powder in your case. So I'm going to be having that right before we seat on station 4. So basically, we're going to size and decap. This is going to be powder cop, and seat and crimp. Station 4. Station 5 will be empty, but I'll cycle it anyway so it ejects onto my bucket here. So I'm going to have to adjust these dies down to the right height, and then adjust this so that it's got the proper crimp on the cantilever of the round. and then adjust the height of the powder. What you don't see here is my powder measure that I showed you earlier. That's because I need to change out the rotors in it, and I'll show you that briefly. Alright, so the instructions on these dies state that there is a protective coating from the factory inside here, and recommend cleaning it off with Hornady One-Shot. Now, because I'm in the process of cleaning my entire press setup, I figured this was a great time to go ahead and do so. I haven't used these dies before, they're brand new. So let me go ahead and just give them a shot with the cleaner, wipe off any of that residue, and hopefully this will create an anti-friction coating that'll promote a smooth operation on the bench. So what we're doing here, I also included my powder cup in this mixed. It has been cleaned before, but I'm just wiping it out just because I got done using it previously, and I don't think I ever cleaned it out. So I'm cleaning out the powder cup first, and short of full disassembly, I sprayed some Hornady One-Shot in there, and really just getting out any of that residue. If you notice, there's some yuck on the end, some additional powder that it picked up. Actually, what I'm going to do here is slide this rod out, make it a little easier. So I'll just give this rod a spray. Wipe this down real well. Get all that coating off. And I believe this will actually create a little bit of a static-free effect on there. So now we got our powder cup reassembled. I'm just going to give this a quick shot on the surface. That'll prevent any rust from building up. And just gently wipe it off with a paper towel. And you're not wiping it off, you're just kind of wiping off the excess. That way, hopefully there's now a corrosion resistant coating on this die. So next I'm going to move to our sizing and decapping die. And what I'm going to do here is just thread this down to the end so I can spray the threads. And then I'm going to liberally apply some of this Hornady One-Shot all over it. And that should break up any of that.
Can I shoot a video of me shooting the BB gun?
No. That should hopefully apply an anti-corrosion coating. That's not the factory rust preventative. And promote consistent results. So again, we're just cleaning this out. You can use Q-tips, but I am just more after getting off any of the major stuff, and looking through here, it looks pretty darn clean. Give it one final shot in there just to rinse it out, wipe off any of the excess, wipe the face. Okay, now this is our decap rod as well as our spindle, zip spindle as they call it. And again, same kind of situation here. Clean that up. You can zip this out a little bit, spray it down underneath where those threads were, the decap head. And again, we're just trying to remove the protective coating and provide some lubrication. So I'm going to set this back. I'm going to set this back into the die. There we go. And what we want to do here is make sure this decap rod is about 3/16 of an inch out. And I think that's good right there. And we tighten this down. A little less. There we go. And we'll snug that pretty good. We'll wrench tighten this on the bench as well. Okay, next I'm going to slide this up and just give it a quick shot. I'm going to clean out the bushing, wipe off the excess. Okay. So now I'll thread this in here. From my experience, this is going to end up being threaded a little bit more like that. Alright, so now everything's hand snugged. We're going to fine tune those adjustments on the bench. And lastly is our crimping and seating tool. And I don't know if I'm going to take this whole thing out. I don't really want to remove this clip because I'm running out of daylight, but I'm going to spray this down really well. Spray all up in here. What's nice about this is it dries with a dry film coating, and so it's not oily, it just slickens up that action. Yeah, so wipe this down real good. Take a peek down in there. Looks good. Let me just get a last shot in there. Make sure it eliminated all of that coating. We are going to clean the seating rod. This is the piece that you don't want to get gummed up in there. Alright, and then finally I'm going to thread out this cap. Spray the threads down just to prevent any sort of galling. So yeah, that's nice and smooth. Okay, so let's reassemble. This drops down like so. Oh, helps when you put it in the right end of the die. So this drops down like so. This threads in the top. Whoops. Okay. And then finally, I got one final bushing. I'm going to spray it out real good. This is again, you want to keep everything lubed up, but also keep it from rusting as we store it. Get this going here. There we have it. So we have our cleaned and ready to go dies. We've got our powder cop, Hornady powder cop. We've got our Hornady 223 sizing and decap die. We've got our Hornady 223 seating and crimping die. So we're going to put these on the press and then start working on the powder drop. Alright, so since I started recording this video, I've gotten some upgrades. I've gotten my bench set up a little more. I got my Lyman case trimmer. I had to order a 30 caliber pilot. Apparently mine ended up missing. Called Hornady, got some load data for the 223 rounds I'm about to be loading. Went through and serviced the entire press, including greasing it, scuffing up some corrosion spots, and re-oiling the action. So now we're set to go. I've got my dies all set up. I got to set my powder cop once I get the powder measure all lined out. But also one thing I did is I ordered this. This is pretty cool. It is a tool holder that mounts to the press, and it comes with, this was only about $38, but it comes with 3 wrenches, 4 Allen wrenches, a pair of pliers, and a Hornady die wrench. So for $30, pretty good value, in my opinion, considering the Hornady die wrench by itself is about 26 bucks on Amazon. So I wasn't too worried about that. Definitely got myself a little more organized here. Again, I'm going to be doing some other stuff here, but wanted to get the press back in commission, get some rounds started loading, and go from there. Alright, so I repainted those pieces that I was previously cleaning the rust blooms off of, and I found a Rust-Oleum spray paint that matched pretty close. Not perfect, but at least it'll stop the rust. And you know, hey, with all of my accessories and everything in red, it certainly adds a lot to the color scheme here. As you can see, I've got my Hornady tool caddy all set up, got my Hornady Deluxe die wrench, I got a pair of pliers, got 3 wrenches and 4 of the common Allen keys that every one of the dies in the press uses. I got everything set up. The next thing I'm going to be getting is a Pyrex powder measure glass instead of this Hornady plastic powder measure glass, just because it discolors, and the powder has a bit of corrosiveness to us that can eat away at this, and it can break off here. So I'm going to be further upgrading my setup as we go, but I wanted to just show you the progress thus far. My entire workbench was just a hot mess until recently, and I had a bit of more time off, and so I wanted to go through and organize and get stuff ready. I got some of these containers to hold the bullets, so this is about a little shy of 400 Hornady 55 grain 223 bullets. I've started you know, setting up my dies for the overall lengths and everything, so all I really need now is powder and my new powder measure glass, and I'll be ready to punch out all 400 of those on the press. So anyway, quick update. I want to just give you an overview of my setup, how we do things here at Sons of Watson Outdoors as far as reloading goes, and as we continue to load, I'll do more videos.